YouTube. Hello to you, my fellow tinklets. Today I'm just going to be running through some silly little sentences and sort of mismatching the words and messing them up in a fun and exciting way that kind of tricks your brain and might make you chuckle a little too while we're at it. The Lady Beauregard had no regard for the disregard of the town guard. The Lady Beauregard had no regard for the disregard of the town guard. The Lady Beauregard had no regard for the disregard of the town guard. The Lady Beauregard had no disregard for the regard of the town guard. The Lady Beauregard had no town guard for the regard of the disregard. The Lady Beauregard had no disregard for the regard of the town guard. The town guard had no Lady Beauregard, had no disregard for the disregard. The regard had no Lady Beauregard for the guard of the disregard of the town guard. The Lady Beauregard had no regard for the disregard of the town guard. The Lady Beauregard had a town guard with disregard for the disregard of the regard of Lady Beauregard. The Lady Town Guard had no regard for the disregard of Lady Beauregard. The Town Guard, Lady Beauregard, had no disregard for your regard, for the regard. The regard, disregard of the future, of the low regard, of the no regard, of the town guard, of the regarded town, city of regarded town guard, regard, disregard, Beauregard, Lady Town, Lady City Guard, Lady Merchant, disregard. The apple tree grows apples, and the pineapple tree grows pineapples, while the pine tree only grows pines. The apple tree grows apples, and the pineapple tree grows pineapples, while the pine tree only grows pine. The apple tree grows pineapples. The apple tree grows pineapples, while the pine tree only grows pine. The pineapple tree only grows pineapples. The apple tree only grows apples, while the pine tree only grows pine saw. The pineapple is an apple tree. The apple tree is a pine tree. But the pine was not a tree. The apple tree grew pineapples, and the pineapples grew apple pens, thus creating a pineapple apple pen tree made of pine. The pine tree produced pine saw, which produced apples, which gave birth to pineapples. The apples became pineapple trees, which produced pine saw trees, which only created pine. The apple created apples, which created apple trees, which created apples, which created apples, which created pineapples, which created apples, which created a pineapple apple tree pen. An apple tree, you have a pen, you have a pineapple, you have a pineapple tree, you have pine saw. You have pine saw. You have pineapple tree pine tall saws, pineapple balls. Pineapple apple tree, pineapple tree palms, palm trees. The pine tree The host was a ghost in the moat. He had a goat on his boat. The host was a ghost in the moat. He had a goat on his boat. The host was a ghost in the moat. He had a goat on his boat. The host was a boat. He had a goat in his moat. The host was a ghost. In the boat was a moat of goats. The whole moat was filled with goats. The ghost of a goat. The host was a boat who had a ghost on a moat. It was quite a wet ghost. The host was a ghost on the boat. He had a moat and he had a goat. The host was a most and a boast and a boast and a ghost. There was a most boast. No, the host had no disregard for the goat on a boat that was made out of pineapple trees. The pineapple tree was actually a ghost who had a boat named Lady Beauregard. Lady Beauregard was a ghost because she made a pineapple tree out of the town guard, for which she had no regard. The apple tree was a ghost, or maybe he had no regard for the boat. Or was it the pine tree who had no regard for the disregarded Beauregard, who had a boat on the moat with a goat? Maybe, maybe not, but maybe the apple tree had a pineapple that grew from Lady Beauregard and her pet ghost that she kept on the boat. Maybe. Maybe not. But one thing's for sure. The salamander had a flounder he called Pounder. The salamander had a flounder he called Pounder. Pounder. The pounder had a flounder who was a salamander. The flounder had a pounder which was a salamander. The salamander had a flounder who was a ghost on a boat. The salamander had a flounder he called Pounder, who grew from a pineapple tree. A pineapple apple tree had a flounder who grew out of a moat. The moat had a boat. It did. Just a fun fact, that's all. The pineapple tree was built out of a boat, which produced Beauregard, who had no disregard for the salamander with the flounder he called Pounder, who only ate pineapples, but only pineapples that came from apple trees made out of pine wood. The salamander had a flounder who was a host on a boast, on a most, on a ghost, with no regard for your disregard of apples and pineapples. Your apples had no flounders. They had a pet goat on a boat that they grew out of a moat, with no regard for Lady Beauregard and her town guard, who was a host with a ghost who knew the most on how to boast. The town regard was a Beauregard called Flounder. She was a pounder. The host was a ghost. He had the most boast. The man only ate rice. He was so nice. The man only ate nice. He was made out of rice. The rice only ate mice. It was so nice. The rice man was a nice man. But not the Iceman. The Iceman was not a nice man. He was a rice man. The rice man ate the ice. No, that didn't happen. He ate a salamander. He ate a salamander, and then he ate a flounder. He was haunted by their ghost, the ghost of Lady Beauregard, the lady who had no regard for your rice, for your flounder, or your pineapple tree. The pine tree grew and produced only pines, which led to the boat on the moat, on the goat, which underneath swam a flounder. His name was Pounder, and he had no disregard for the apple tree. The rice tree only grew ice, but not rice. The ice tree only grew rice, but he did not grow any rice. The ice tree only grew nicely, like the apples that grew from trees, which grew from ghosts, from the hosts of the most, of the boasts, of the regarded, disregarded, regarded, Beauregarded. The lady tree only produced boats, and the goats only produced lady trees, who were all town guards. All of them were all town guards. They guarded the apple trees, and the apple trees produced pineapples, which produced more guards, who guarded the salamanders, and the pounders, and the flounders, and the rice, and the ice, and the pine trees, and the pine, and the moat, and the goat, and the boat, that all belonged to Lady Beauregard, who had no regard for your apple trees. Remember, no regard for your regard of the disregard, regarded, disregarded apple tree, pineapple, apple, pineapple tree, apple tree, apple tree, regarded the disregard of the pineapple tree, the pineapple, the host, the ghost, the post, the salamander, the flounder, the pineapple, the apples, the trinos, and the trees, and the rice, and the ice, and the man, and the Beauregard, and the regard, and the disregard, and the apples, and the trinos, and the apples, and the trying, the pine, giant pine tree, apple, pineapple trees, and the ghost, and the host, and the most, and the post, and the post, and the post, and the ghost, and the most, and the post, and the post, and the goats, and the goat, and the boat, and the goat, and the goat, and the boat, and the goat, and the boat, and the salamander, who was a flounder, who was a panda, who was a panda, no, he was he was a pounder, he was a flounder, he was a salamander, he was an apple, he was a rice man, he was a rice man with a pineapple tree, with an apple, with a pineapple tree, with an apple, with the disregard, the disregard, the town guard, the town guard, the town guard of the Beauregard, of the pineapple, apple tree, the apple tree, which only goes pineapples, only goes trees, and only goes pineapples, only goes trees, and the one of the ghost, to the most, to the boast, to the boast, to the host, and the host of the ghost, of the boat, of the moat, of the goat, of the boat, of the goat, of the boat, and the goat, of the boat, go to the boat, go to the boat, go to the boat, the salamander, of the flounder, of the pounder, of the apple tree, which grows pineapples and not apples, but the apples grow pineapple trees, which produce ghosts, which are the host for the most of the boast of the Lady Beauregard, who had no regard for the disregard of the town. The apple tree grows apples, and the pineapple tree grows pineapples, while the pine tree only grows pine. The host was a ghost in the moat. He had a goat on his boat. The salamander had a flounder he called Pounder. The Iceman had a rice man with a goat in the boat. No, that wasn't it. Oh, I remember. Pounder called he flounder. A had salamander. The boat is on goat. He had, oh, wait, no, I messed that up. Pounder called he flounder. Pounder called he flounder. A salamander. The boat is on goat. had he. Mote in the ghost was was host. The pine grows only tree pine. The while apples, pineapple. Wait, apples, pine grows tree pineapple. The and apples grows tree apple. The guard down, the of the disregard, the for regard, no had Beauregard, the lady wait, no, the apple, low Beauregard of the Beauregard of the apple tree of the host, the ghost of the post, the ghost of the ghost of the post, the most, the ghost of the post, the post, the founder, and he called her Pounder. He called Lady Beauregard Pounder. It was the nickname that the guard gave the apple tree. Or was it the gift of the Beauregard to the Lady Apple? Pineapple most, ghost rice man. Yes, Rice was a nice man. He was a nice man who had no disregard for the regard of the Beauregard, of the tree, of the pineapple, apple tree, the pineapple, apple tree, the pineapple, and then the host of the ghost and the post of the moon. The salamander had a flounder. He called Pounder, flounder, and a host in the. He had a host in the. What the house of the ghost of the. And no regard for the district. And then the apple tree had the. And then the most of the ghost. And then the ghost of the post and the of the pineapple, the apple tree of the pineapple, the Beauregard and the disregard and the salamander and the pounder and the apple trees, the Beauregards of the pine and the pine of the apple, and the apple and the pine and the pine and the apple and the Beauregard and the juice, and then the trees and the pineapples and the apples and the rose and the rose and the post and the rose and the post and then the and the Lady Guard had no Beauregard for the host of the most of your pineapple tree. Goodbye, my fair pineapple trees, and my apple trees, and my Lady Beauregards. Adieu.